So I'm just gonna do half an hour today. I'm going to explain the stuff that I have there. I'm probably not gonna do anything today. I wanted to stream earlier today, but there's a bunch of things to study, and I spend a bunch of time watching videos, so didn't have enough time. And now I'm trying to debug what I have there so far. So I think I'm just gonna explain the codes that I have so far. Then I think I'm gonna change to show, which I did on the last stream, to show the beginning of the curve that I have there and explain how it works on Godot to build a curve on 3D. Then after I do that, I'm going to, if I have time, I'm going to try to debug the stuff that I have there now. Just going to wait to see if it's streaming. Maybe I'll start explaining, then I'll check later. But so I'm building from the C++ codes, but basically what you need to build a curve on 3D is the way that I'm doing now. There are a couple of different ways, but this is the way that I'm trying to do. So later on, I'm gonna try to convert into another class and then build it from the vertices. Build the vertices from scratch without using the classes. But for now, I'm creating this new class on a module that I created. It's called Brahma. So all you have to do to create a module is you put a folder inside of the modules folder here. And then you have to create two different files, which is the register types. And what Godot is going to do is going to generate a file on build time that is going to put the functions, these functions here, inside of another function that initializes all the modules. So those are the functions that are going to initialize your module. And inside of this function, you put this macro here that is going to register your class on the class DB, which is the class that Godot uses to keep track of all the classes throughout the project. So that's pretty much all that you have to do. So I created a class there and I'm registering the class here. And this class inherits from CSG Polygon 3D, which allows you to create geometry through a surface in 2D. And then to create a curve, all you have to do is just create this path 3D here, which uses another class called curve to build a curve. So basically this is the sequence here. So you set the mode from the CSG Polygon 3D to mode path. Then I'm creating the curve using memory, which is a macro that I use on Godot to allocate memory on a memory pool. So this basically creates the path 3D node. Then I instantiate the curve because the curve is a reference, which is a resource. So whenever you have this ref and you put the class here as the template for the ref, you need to call this instantiate so that it calls the constructor of whatever you put here as a template for the ref. So this is just calling the constructor for the curve 3D. Then I'm adding the curve path as a child of the CSG Polygon 3D. Then this is the way that you have to initialize the. So basically you are specifying the path in the tree hierarchy to the path 3D node you created. So I set the name here to path 3D of this curve path 3D here, which is basically this node. So I'm setting the name of the node to this, and then this path here is going to be the path to this node pretty much. And then I use this path here to set on the CSG Polygon 3D. It's basically just setting the path to path 3D on the CSG Polygon, which is basically what it's gonna do is just creates. I use this function here to create a surface in 2D, which is basically creates a circle in 2 dimensions using this, which I got from ChatGPT, and then I call this function setPolygon, and this is gonna set a vector of vector 2Ds on the CSG polygon. And the CSG polygon 3D is gonna use this vector of vector 2 across the path of the curve there, of the path 3D. You are to draw the curve in 3 dimensions. And that's basically what's happening here. And what I'm trying to do is create, so now I'm changing, I test this with a very simple way there. Basically, so yeah, I was doing, I forgot to, no, yeah. So I was using this function here to generate the points on the curve. And then I was just building simple points. But now what I'm trying to do is to choose this other function here. Initially, I was going to create a generic function that creates a Bezier curve based on whatever number you put there. But now I decided that it's just easier to have the actual functions. I'm just going to do quadratic and cubic, I think. But probably just cubic in the beginning. So this function here creates a cubic Bezier curve. And the way that it works is that you need 4 points. So I have the start, which is the beginning of the curve on this class here, start point. Then I have the end point, which is the end of the curve. And then you need 2 control points, which are going to be somewhere along the curve in order to create the shape of the curve. So it's basically this equation here. And then the t is going to be the weight, which is the distance between, the ratio between the beginning and the end of the current point you're calculating. So basically here, I'm looping over, and this is creating 9 points from the beginning to the end, following this equation here, which is supposed to create the shape of the curve. But right now, I'm having a problem there that's not working, so I'm not sure what's going on. So I think what I'm going to do first is just create 4 points here. A 0.0. So the idea is to create the curve with this function here, cubic Bezier curve. Then I push to these curve points here, and the curve points is the structure that I'm gonna use to set the points. So this is the curve there that I have on the other class, and the add point function of the curve adds the point to the curve, and then I'm gonna use that curve here. So I set the curve on the curve path, which is the path 3D. And then I use the path 3D on the polygon nodes by setting here. So this is essentially using the shape of the circle on the 2 dimensions that I create here in order to draw the circles over the path that you create there. And it does that through extrusion, I think, on a function that I'm probably going to show there. Depends on how much time I have here. So the thing that is important as well that I realized that I was doing wrong here is that the value of the last value of t here of pasta should be between 1 and 0, because it's kind of like a percentage. So you have the beginning and the end, and the t is going to determine at what weight, let's say, the current point that you're calculating is at along the range between the beginning and the end. So I'm just going to do like this. Let's put 40. Just that's whatever. I'm pretty sure when I was doing like this, it was working. So I think it's something to do with the vector. Yeah, so first sets the mode, then initializes the path 3D, instantiates the curve, adds the curve path as a child of the polygon. CSG polygon. Then I set the name, create the curve node path, generate the curve points. Right now, based on this here. Then I set the curve on the curve path, generate the circle on the CSG polygon 3D. Then set the path to the path node there. I think this should work. Obviously don't care that much. It's just to see. I'm pretty sure last time that I did this, it was working. So unless I did something that I don't remember. And these ones here, these functions I got from a tutorial there that I was watching on YouTube. So I'm probably gonna see if I'm gonna test to use these other functions as well. But I think it's pretty much the same thing. So the way that the Bezier curve works is just a collection of linear interpolations. So the dimensions of the curve, which are a polynomial equation, are gonna depend on how many linear interpolations you have, because you're creating different linear interpolations that creates a shape, and then through the movement of the differences in the different linear interpolations, it creates a path for the points. So once I get to the point that I make this work with the cubic Bezier here, that creates the cubic Bezier curve using these classes, then what I'm going to try to do is get the code from the CSG polygon 3D that creates the curve and transfer to this other class here, and then build everything from the vertices from scratch. So once I get to the point, because what I'm trying to do is to approximate or make it like pretty much the same as the curve 3D curve that they do on Blender, because it's slightly different here, I think. The way that this curve on Godot works, if you do it like this, is the shape seems to be different than the one that Blender does. And I think that is different because of the way that they do the interpolation between the intervals of the path that it creates there. Because what they're essentially doing is creating a circle. Then across the path, depending on the amount of intervals that you have there, they're going to create several different circles across the path. And then they're going to connect the two circles with quads, which are just collection of two triangles that creates a mesh. And that creates so the more intervals you have, the smoother the curve is. But on Godot, it seems that this connection between the two different circles is different than the way that they do it on Blender. And also, another weird thing is that for some reason it's not zooming. So I'm not really sure what's going on. Yeah, but you can see here that it's just creating it did create the curve. It doesn't zoom too much. I'm not really sure why this is happening. Yeah, but basically it is creating the curve. Fuck. I fucked it up there. But I think there's something going on with the... See if I can put here. And now it's zooming more. Yeah, but I think it is working. But when I use the equation there for the cubic Bezier, it doesn't work for some reason. I'm trying to show it's kind of hard to zoom. This is the problem here. It's like the curvature is fucked up. I think the other example that I did was also the same thing. So this is very different than... And I think the reason why this happens is because of the rotation there. But this is the thing that I'm trying to... So once I make it happen with the Bezier curve thing there, what I'm gonna do is just get the So I'm going to show what I think is happening here to build this. But they're basically using an array mesh. An array mesh is a mesh that you can set on the mesh instance 3D node. If you go here, you can set the mesh here. And then what this allows you to do is build a collection of vertices that you are gonna you can set using a function there. And what Godot is basically gonna do is gonna use those vertices that you pass there to create a surface based on whatever primitive you set, which is the stuff that I was doing here. So basically, you manually build the vertices, and then you specify the primitive triangles, and then it's just going to be like any other framework where it's going to use the vertices to build the triangles that you put here. So what I'm trying to do is just transfer this stuff to this function here. Then once I'm able to do that, then I'm going to see either from Blender or somewhere else how to calculate the rotation so that the curve is smooth. Because on Blender, the way that it works is basically like similar to this, but they make the curvature because the sections of the circles are connected in a different way. So I go here on Add, Curve, Bezier. This adds the curve here, then you go here on Data, Geometry, and then you can add depth here. And you can go, can click this to see so this is basically what I mean. So I think that Godot's doing pretty much the same thing, where they are connecting through these sections here. So you create different circles, and then depending on the amount of sections, which you can regulate here, it generates the quads on the face here through the connection of the two different points, the intervals. I think Godot's doing pretty much similar thing there. But the problem is that Godot doesn't, because the CSG polygon can be used for any shape. So I think that on the logic there, they are not calculating the rotation of the circles in a way that creates the curvature of the thing. And that's why on the edge there is kind of weird. It's fucked up. But I think it's probably better to try to get to the full curve before I try to move everything to the other function. But I think that the way that it works here, I'm pretty sure I wrote down somewhere. Yeah, here. So it's in build brush line 1982. So I think that the function that creates the shape is this function here on the build brush. And the way that they do it is just by getting the polygon shape. And then somewhere along the middle there. So here is basically the mode there that determines how they're going to build. And here I think is where it's probably down there, but it basically creates the shape on 2D, the face, which you can create. It can be, I'm doing a circle there obviously because I want to create it too, but you can do whatever shape you want, I think, on 2D. Then it uses that shape to extrude based on whatever control flow it has here. I guess the face counts and faces resize with the face count. So here I think is where it starts calculating. So I guess the direction from here using the curve that you set there. I think it comes from the path 3D. Yeah, so from the path you set on the CSG polygon, it's going to get the curve. And the curve is the data structure that is going to contain the points you're trying to connect on 3 dimensions. Then it uses that to get the direction. So it gets the current points, the next points based on the extrusion. This extrusion step here, I think, is the similar thing that is happening on Blender there. Is basically the gap between these sections here that they're going to use to create the rectangle between them. That's based on the shape, obviously. So it gets the current, the next, and the up vector, and the direction is just the next minus the current. And I think it's normalized. I'm not really sure. Also, they create Transform 3D is just a matrix, 4x4 matrix that they use for manipulation of positions. So it's just looking at probably the look at is the same logic as the look at function from a camera. It just gets the current up, the direction, and does the triangle math. It probably does the cross vector of the two to get the perpendicular one. Just see where the vector is looking at, probably. So get the direction here, then creates this facing. And I think here is the main part, the one that I wrote down there. This is the thing that is actually going to create the geometry based on the path and the amount of extrusions it puts. And extrusions, I think, is just the path interval there that you can change from the editor if you want. And obviously from the code. But extrusions 0, and then on the mode path, it becomes the path interval. Curve length divided by the path interval. So curve length is the path that you set on the curve there. And then they divide by the path interval, which I think is 1 by default. So it's basically going to be the amount of amount of sections, I think. And I think this is the main difference between the way that Godot does it and the way that Blender is gonna do it. Is basically on here, because and this is the part that I'm trying to clarify more, because the direction of the thing really matters for getting the curvature correctly, I think. And on Blender, yeah, if you remove the resolution here, it becomes more like this. So I'm just gonna go back to the trying to, because obviously I don't want to put these 4 points. I'm not really sure what's going on. So what I'm doing here is just looping over an arbitrary number. I was putting resolution U there, or resolu, which is the value that I'm going to put for the sections, the amount of sections I want. But for to simplify now, I'm just putting 10. Then basically looping, creating a point. Then for each point that I create, I append here, and then here I add to the curve. But this is the thing. Actually, I just realized that I don't need to do this other thing here. Just add here. I think it's still the problem that I'm getting there might be because of the vector here, because it's creating the vector and then it's returning from the function. So I'm not pretty sure if it's deleting. But based on other stuff that I've seen from Godot, you're not supposed to use memnew for vectors. Like they are designed in a way that it's just gonna be used inside of the functions. So I'm not really sure if that's the problem or not. But I think I'm gonna do it like this now. So basically loop over 10, create a point based on the. So for now, I'm doing this default values here just to test. But obviously, this is another thing that I'm not 100% sure. But I don't think, because the way that I'm going to do it is going to be, the curve is going to be dynamic. So I don't think it makes sense to expose the control points on the editor to edit, because it's not supposed to be a static thing. So I'm going to have to figure out, which I was kind of doing here before, how to set control points, the two control points that have to be somewhere along the curve, based on the start and the end, which is kind of confusing to do. But you pretty much need to have 4 points. So right now I'm putting the start point on the origin here, and the end point on the x direction, and then I'm imagining the control 1 and control 2 should be at the middle of the curve, and then just change the y direction. So like basically creates a like a square, rotated square. So that's I make sure that it's gonna have a curvature on the shape, but it's not working now. So I'm not, there's obviously something wrong, but I'm not sure what it is. And this one is supposed to create a vector based on the cubic Bezier curve equation, and then add the points. So it's basically creating a curve of 10 points or 9 points based on this. 11 actually, because of the start and the end. I'm not adding the start and end, just realized this. So maybe here. And then after. I don't think it matters the order you put there, because all that matters is the position, but. So this should generate the path of the curve. And then based on that, in the shape that you generate here, the circle, you should create a circle along the 10 different paths. And you can't put only the beginning and the end, because then it just creates a straight line, I think. Well, the direction of the first circle is off as well, because I'm just doing like the easiest thing possible there. So if I didn't want to the first circle to be out of alignment with the curve, what I would have to do is just rotate the circle, the initial vertices, so that they are facing the same direction of the distance between the two different points, I think. So the start point and the one right after the start point can probably get the direction by subtracting them and then normalizing, I think. And then just get the angle between that one and the origin, or something like that. And then you just rotate everything by that angle, I think. So this is the stuff that I don't know what's gonna. It's just creating a straight line here. Diameter can be 0. Zero length interval. Hmm. I guess I can go over with the debugger as well. Just see what's going on. While looking at. Hmm. And this is the one that it has there. So the only explanation, so what I did as well before was trying to do is to create some mesh instance 3D with a sphere so I could see the points there. But it wasn't showing the points. So it was only showing 2 points, I think. So I think there's something going on with this thing here that I'm not really sure. So what if I I add the points inside of here? I guess another thing I can do is just like manually puts like point 1, point 2, and then see what happens. I'm gonna do that now. So I think the last thing that I'm gonna try today, because it's already late here. So let me do 4 points here. The problem is that's is not gonna be. Let's do 8. I'm just gonna do this for now, just see what happens. I think it might be something to do with the memory there. I'm not sure. Like the error is the thing that's it's kind of weird because like and the only reason why this would be showing is because the next is the same as the current one, so the distance is 0. No, but that can't be the case, I think. I'm not really sure what's going on. I think if this is too hard to debug, it might be easier to just get the simplest example possible there that works. So manually add 4 points in a way that it kind of creates a shape, and then try to transfer that to the other one. And then once I have the function that reproduces that only using the vertices, then I can, because then it's going to be easier to figure out. Like once you remove all the other classes and all the other stuff that's not necessary there, and I have the function that creates the vertices from the points, then I think it becomes easier to debug maybe. Just see what's going on. Because I think that the cubic Bezier curve there is I'm pretty sure that that function is correct. And it is the same as the other one that I have there, just different ways. But I'm gonna try to implement the other one as well, I think. So it should be creating points on the cubic Bezier curve on 3D based on the, because the 3D vector 3D or vector 3 on Godot has overloaded overloaded operators that allow me to put the vector in the directly on the equation. But it might be like better at first to see if it works. Oh, interesting. So now it's working. So I guess it was a memory thing there. Oh, nice. Yeah, so it worked. Nice. Yeah, so I guess what I'm gonna do with this is, I wasn't expecting to work. Nice. So what I'm gonna do is just transfer this code to the, I'm gonna try to extract all the other stuff that's not necessary to me, and just transfer this code here, the code that creates this, to this function here, only using the vertices. So initially, I think I'm going to use the classes. So like try to do a gradual transition from just basically copy paste the parts of the code here, which I think are these ones that are used to create the shape there, based on the data structures. Then once I have that, and I remove one data structure by one until I'm only using the transform 3D, the vector 3D, and the face, which I think the face is the class that they create to put the information of the 2D shape that creates the pattern. Yeah, so, but I'm gonna stop here because I'm already tired, spent a bunch of time studying. So I'm gonna continue this for sure sometime. Probably not gonna stream tomorrow, I'm not really sure. And I'm gonna study all this stuff here, which are also related to mesh generation, all these keywords here. But probably obviously it's gonna take a lot of time. But I think 2 days from now I'm gonna continue to do this. So I think tomorrow I'm not really sure if I'm gonna try anything after this, because I might spend a bunch of time just studying all this stuff here. But I'm definitely gonna continue to do this and probably gonna stream 2 days from now. So